Hello, Zanzi, and a warm welcome to this important webinar on the pivotal role of agriculture in shaping a vibrant new Zimbabwe. To my Zimbabwean listeners, Makadi Titamberai. My name is Duncan Masiwa. It's Wednesday, 23 August, and Zimbabwe is heading to the voting polls. Now, if you're listening or watching this, thank you for joining us for this engaging webinar hosted by Food For Mzansi and as well as foodforafrica.com. Of course, we'll be delving into the pivotal role of agriculture in shaping a vibrant new Zimbabwe. Now, this is, of course, set against the backdrop of the country's general elections. And this timely discussion, I hope, will explore some of the dynamic interplay between agriculture, socio-economic development, as well as the future of Zimbabwe. Now, on your screens, you'll see that I am not alone. I am joined by my three panelists. Joining us from Harare is Christina Nyirenda, who is a media executive and TV personality. She's also a well-known television host in the country and currently one of the selected group of global media executives completing a postgraduate qualification in journalism innovation at the University of Central Lancashire. Of course, joining her as well is Theo de Jager, who is the Executive Director at the Southern African Agri Initiative, also known as SAI. Now, Theo is also the Chairman of the Food and Agricultural Natural Resources Policy Analysis Network and Chairman of Agri All Africa. Joining them as well is born and bred in Marondera in Zimbabwe, Hamond Motsi, who is an agronomist and a soil scientist. Now, his mother is a subsistence farmer and has recently moved to South Africa to embark on his PhD studies at the Stellenbosch University. Hamond, Christina, Theo, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you. I want to kick off the conversation just on a lighter note. We are an agricultural publication. I'd like you to maybe describe what food would you use to describe Zimbabwe's agricultural sector. What food would you use to describe Zimbabwe's agricultural sector? Is it a beefy stew? Is it what we call in South Africa a quota? Is it what would you use to describe Zimbabwe's agricultural sector? Christina, maybe I can jump to you on this one.
Wow, my personal favorite is biltong.
But why biltong?
Because I just love biltong, and I think it also then just goes to show that Zimbabwe is a cattle country. We have good beef, and so your different types of beef. So that's on the lighter side. I mean, definitely I'd for biltong anytime.
No, we love our biltong here in South Africa. Now, hopefully Theo can share in that sentiment. Theo, what would you use to describe Zimbabwe's agricultural sector?
Unfair question. I'm a fundamental meatitarian. I'm a South African farmer. So when I think Zimbabwe, I think of steak.
Love that. Hamond?
In Zimbabwe, we get that.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. I think let's get straight into it. It's elections in Zimbabwe. It's a very important time in the country, a very important period for voters on the ground. Maybe just as a backdrop, Hamond, I'll start with you. I introduced you and I said that your mother is a subsistence farmer in Zimbabwe, farming on about 6 hectares of land. As a subsistence farmer in Zimbabwe, what has farming been like for your mother?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. So, farming, farming in Zimbabwe is a subsistence farmer. There's got a lot of challenges to start with, and then on the other hand, uh, a certain benefit. So, in terms of challenging, it's normally about the market, right? The marketing of the produce, right? So, looking at the marketing physiology country, as well as the economic architecture of the country, it makes it a bit tough and tricky for farmers to sell or to market their produce. But on the beneficial side, I can say my mother and other subsistence farmers in general, they'll be able to make it up for themselves, generally for feeding themselves, feeding their families. And then remember, for subsistence agriculture, you need to feed yourself first, and then the one which is in surplus, that's the one you need to sell, and then you can cover some other needs. So that's what I can say. That you can be able in Zimbabwe, you can be able to get something to sell, but now when it comes to the marketing part to sell the surplus, that's where it becomes a bit tricky due to the tough economic architecture of.
Yeah, and I'm sure Theo could also add to some of the points that you raised there on what it's like farming in Zimbabwe and the challenges that farmers on the ground face. But Christina, it's election day and you are joining us live from Harare. What's the mood on the ground? What is the current mood of the nation?
The mood is electric, and everyone's has this excitement. Obviously, it's also tense, but it's very peaceful. And, people just want to express their constitutional right. And people are looking forward to making sure that they do vote. So you'll find I was speaking with a few younger people, and everyone's like, yeah, no, this is our first time to vote or whatever. And everybody just wants to make sure that they cast their ballot. So it's just a wonderful time to be here at this time.
Yeah, some strong words there, tense and excitement coming from the ground. Theo, given your understanding of Zimbabwe's history and its land reform issues under the late Robert Mugabe, how do you perceive the lasting impact of those events on the nation's agricultural landscape and food security?
A lot of things are different tomorrow, or with this election. Things that was not on the horizon with the last one. Things which we did not even think about in the one before that. I was an election monitor in 2008 in Matabeleland South, and I remember so well the tenseness which Christina has just alluded to. What's different this time is since the last election, a deal had been struck with the farmers on compensation. And although nothing came from it, the foundation has been laid. The principle has been established that there should be compensation. And all the bigger parties recognize that without that compensation and without the restoration of property rights, we will probably not be able to put Zimbabwe back in its rightful place in the global economy. And And for the first time, we have a party, the leader of this Triple C, Nelson Chamisa, who actually came out very strong to say, but property rights is the key to unlocking the wealth of this country. Let's have property rights for all, from the smallest of the smallholders to the biggest commercial farmer. But without that, we will not have the investment and the collateral to unlock access to financing. And hence, the mood amongst farmers are different. And you must remember also, different to Mozambique or Angola, which had a war, damaging its infrastructure, breaking down bridges, or damaging the road. Zimbabwe still has all the infrastructure. It needs a lot of maintenance now, but it's still there. Zimbabwe can turn on a tiki. You release the power of capital on that in that country, it will be 2 or 3 years, and they will be back amongst the most competitive countries, not only in food production, but also in fiber production. Remember, the Zimbabweans were the kings of the tobacco industry. They were amongst the princes of the cotton and cut flour and beef industries.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, Hamond can definitely attest to the boom that we've seen in the tobacco industry with Zimbabwe. I think there's been a recent boom, and that positively contributing to the agricultural sector, but as well as to Zimbabwe's economy. Theo, it sounds like you, although things are to a certain extent very bad as they are, but there is still some sense of hope that things can be turned around. Christina, you know, what are your thoughts on this? Agriculture has historically been a crucial sector in Zimbabwe's economy. How do you see the connection between the agricultural industry and the broader socio-political landscape of the country, especially in the context of these elections?
I think there's a definite link. And obviously, as Zimbabweans, as Theo said, we were once like the breadbasket of Southern Africa. And I definitely see that right now, with the way we are going, the trajectory that we're taking, that there's so many farmers. I mean, Hamond's mom, for example, even my own mom, she has her 6 hectares. And you can see that each year things are getting better, you know, in terms of even accessing the inputs that comes through. So people are finding it. Yes, it's hard, but I think there's also a lot of localized organization in terms of, say, if you are in a certain area, there'll be a time when you do get some input. So you know that if I'm under this particular headman or this particular chief, then we'll get so many kgs of whatever coming through. So this is basically, I mean, it's small scale, but obviously we want Zimbabwe to make sure that it's on a larger scale. But I believe that given a few more years, as Theo was saying, things will change. Because right now you'll find that so many people that were never interested in farming are now all of a sudden saying, you know what, I want to get into farming. And more people are actually going and studying farming. They're getting to know what farming is all about. Whereas before we all stood in the sidelines. I mean, I always laugh and I always say, you know what, my dream is to have my purple pair of gumboot. You know, that's how crazy I am. So that I can be walking around and doing such things. But definitely, I think obviously the financial aspect is what is needed so that the farmers can be able to buy and to profit and also to upgrade their land. I think that is what is needed now. Obviously, with the 99-year leases, I think now there's the one bank, the Agriculture Finance Corporation, which has been set up So I think moving forward, we should be seeing more people making farming a profitable business and not just, for the smaller players as well as the bigger players.
It's interesting to me that there's a sense of excitement, especially under the agricultural community in Zimbabwe. I mean, farming is far from easy, and from the conversations that I've had with a few people, it's not easy in Zimbabwe as well. You talk about farming on 6 hectares. I know here in South Africa, farmers struggle to farm profitably on 10 hectares, 15 hectares, some 20 hectares. Hamond, you've worked closely with farmers on the ground. Is your mother's experience of what it's like to be a farmer in Zimbabwe, is that experience also experienced by other farmers in the country?
Okay, the experience can be like the general experience which all farmers can face in the country, or it can be certain experience which particular farmer or particular farmers may certainly experience. So it also comes with the type of crops which the farmers are into, which also is determined by the regions or the region where the farmer is. So if you look in Zimbabwe, normally the structure of the farming practice is like in the southern part, like the Midley, the Matabeleland region going down. It's normally about it's normal about animal farming, and then the upper parts of machinery region, it's when it's most about the about crop production. So what the farmers in the experience can be different on that. So you find out that those ones which are specialized in tobacco, they have their own model, and then they have their own experience like that. And then you find out those ones which are producing cotton, they will be having their own model and their own challenges on that certain crop. So as to those who are also into animal production.
Yeah. And if I remember, you recently wrote a thought leader piece for Food For Mzansi on the tobacco industry, and obviously the success that we've seen in the industry, and how possibly that model that is used for the tobacco industry could potentially be replicated for other crops, and we could start seeing positive shifts in some of the other crops that is farmed in Zimbabwe. So definitely something to look out for. Christina, reflecting on Zimbabwe's history, the nation has faced challenging times. What lessons do you believe can be learned from the past experiences to ensure a more stable and prosperous future for both farmers and the nation as a whole?
I think one of the things is probably transparency. If the leaders are transparent and the people can see what's going on, what's happening, whether it's in terms of financially and even in terms of the inputs, once again, for farming. I think that is one lesson where we need to learn. And then probably also in terms of, funny enough, time management. I think right now there's a lot going on, and I've noticed I needed to buy some seeds the other day and I couldn't find any, and they were like, no, it's only coming a little bit later on in the month of August. So it looks like though now a lot of farmers are learning to plant on time. So that is one thing that people have learned, because I think before everybody used to do their own thing. And, you'd have somebody putting crop now and somebody putting a crop later, and then it burns because there's too much sun, it gets scorched. Whereas now, so definitely working together with even the Met department and the various agricultural authorities, it's now becoming easier. So people now know what is going on and when to plant and when to harvest, etc., etc. But I think also another lesson to learn is just to be united, unity of purpose. If we know what should be grown in a certain area, and also, how we're going to do it, helping one another. And then the other thing is probably being innovative. I think innovation is needed. It's critical because the world is changing. There's global issues, global warming, the planet is just changing. So one of the lessons that we need to learn as Zimbabweans is to say, you know what, we can't just be growing maize just because that's all that we know. There's so many other crops that can be grown. So innovation is definitely a lesson that we need to take on board and start utilizing like ASAP.
Yeah. Theo, we heard Christina talking about some of the lessons that can be learned from Zimbabwe's past and how we can potentially build forward. Zimbabwe's history is quite similar to that of South Africa, in that, in this case, the treatment of white farmers during land reform era has always been a contentious issue. In your discussions with farmers on the ground in Zimbabwe, what are the sentiments that they are expressing about their past experiences and potential reconciliation?
This is not a simple question, and I'm not going to try to get away with a simple answer, because the farmers is not a homogeneous group. Today, my own organization, SAI, is the biggest representative of commercial farmers in Zimbabwe, and we have a very strong link to the farmers in Matabele land, also with the royal houses in Matabele land. So it is pretty much the farmers who were dispossessed, white and black farmers. And I don't think the history is that similar. There are similarities. In South Africa, the farmers have a more than 200 years longer than in Zimbabwe. The British played a role in both, but not as big a role in South Africa as they played in Zimbabwe. For South African farmers, what happened in Zimbabwe was pretty much everything we fear might happen in South Africa. So many farmers believe that Zimbabwe is kind of a peep into the future of South Africa. Personally, I don't believe that. I don't think we are on the same trajectory when it comes to land reform than in Zimbabwe, because we do have some stuff in South Africa which the Zimbabweans never had. And one of it is an example on our doorstep on where this road may lead to. But then also, Zimbabwe had some stuff which South Africa never had. Zimbabwe did something right on education. The human capital that comes from Zimbabwe is in a league of its own. That's why the Zimbabweans are performing so well, also in the rest of the region and even elsewhere in the world. And we found that Zimbabwean farmers, from smallholders to commercial scale farmers, and especially newcomers to the industry, are much better equipped than those in South Africa. It is as if youngsters in South Africa would shy away from choosing agriculture as a career, while we did not see the same in Zimbabwe. There's a lot more excitement. What is the most important similarity is that poverty is the main challenge in both our countries. And if our generation do not win the war on poverty, we are the last generation who can really win this war. But there is no sector of the economy of either Zimbabwe or South Africa which can create more wealth in a shorter space of time and on a broader basis than agriculture can. And there's only one way to kill the dragon of poverty. That is by creating wealth. But there are a few conditions for that. The natural environment must be conducive. And let me tell you, in Zimbabwe, they have everything that money cannot buy. They have the most wonderful soils, the water, the climate, the people. What they lack is a competitive business environment for that. Linkages to foreign markets again, to be able again to create jobs where it's most needed in the deep rural areas, because they can earn dollars from what they export. For that, they need a policy environment that is conducive to profitable and competitive farming. And I think if a fair way would give the farmers of Zimbabwe one wish, not only white farmers or black farmers or big farmers or small farmers, I would say family farmers, they would wish for that policy environment which can unleash the potential of agriculture to create that wealth again.
Yeah. And I mean, you talk about a conducive environment. It's definitely important, especially for the agricultural sector. I'm wondering if we are seeing that conducive environment. The reason why I'm highlighting is that, you know, some observers suggest that Zimbabwe's agricultural sector is experiencing a resurgence with reports of white farmers actually returning to the country. Are these anecdotes reflective of the larger trend, and how might this how do you think might this impact the nation's agricultural sector and the economy, Theo?
We do not see the numbers of white farmers returning. I think, remember, it's been 23 years since the fast-track land reform program started. At the time, the average age of commercial farmers, of white farmers, was 63. So if you would add all those who have passed on since, it would have been 86 now. They are not the ones who will come back farming. It's their sons and their daughters that might have an appetite for that. It's a whole generation on. But there's such a big difference between land and farm. You know, there's a lot of land which are not farmed, and to transform land into farms takes a lot of capital. And capital is as shy as a deer. When you scare it, it runs. And I'm afraid this is what went wrong in Zimbabwe. The capital ran, and now we need to lure it back. And we are in competition with the rest of SADC and East Africa when we try to lure investment. So those who are investing at the moment are investing on a very short term. They are planting maize and they are bringing in livestock because it is a short cycle. What they put in, they can recoup in the same year. We don't really see farmers now planting macadamias or avocado orchards or citrus or even timber, the long-term dollar-earning commodities. And if you would allow me, Herman, I beg to differ from you when it comes to the reparation of the value chain, the value chains, for example, in tobacco or cotton. You see, although we already have the volumes again, which we had 23 years ago in those value chains, those are the closed value chain. You will not find hawkers selling tobacco leaves or cotton on a street corner, like you would find hawkers selling fruits and vegetables and meat on a street corner. So from organized agriculture, from the agricultural organizations, we are not very much excited about the recovery, for example, of tobacco, because the recovery is for big business. It's not creating wealth for our smallholder farmers. These big tobacco companies, they bring financing. They bring seed and fertilizer and even mechanization to the table. They give the inputs, but they also buy the product at the farm gate. So they know exactly what the margins of those farmers are. And more in the case of smallholders than anyone else, they keep their noses just above the water when it comes to profit margins. And if they complain, they would dip them under to make them grateful again. And from the outside, it looks pretty much like a modern form of slavery. The market is not free. They cannot sell to anyone they want or to the best bidder. And hence, it is easy to recover in volumes for tobacco and cotton. What Zimbabwe needs is that kind of growth in production output in fruit and vegetables and meat and the rest of the value chains too.
Sure, some strong sentiments there by Theo. Modern day slavery, that's definitely a scary thought. Hamond, what is your reaction to that? You know, looking at smallholder farmers in Zimbabwe, what do you think are some of the possible solutions that should be explored to ensure profit for farmers, smallholder farmers at Farmgate?
Okay. So, in fact, each and every crop has got its own model in terms of how it's produced, and then as well as how it will be marketed. So, in terms of tobacco, right, the marketing is kind of different from other crops like maize, cotton, citrus, etc. Right. So the reason why I saw that there be a boom in farmers shifting tobacco, it's because due to the volatile marketing system, especially when it comes to agriculture, right? Tobacco becomes a bit profitable than other crops like maize and citrus, right? So I think that, like you had mentioned, look, there are companies who give the farmers inputs, and then they come and buy back the tobacco in the tobacco industry, right? I think for me, I think that model is better. Why? Because if you look for other crops like maize, right? If you a farmer farms maize, right, the market is normally the government, right? So you're gonna need to sell your maize or your grains at the grain marketing board, which is the one which is a government organization. So you find out that the prices, right, are a bit lower, right? There is delay in payment of the maize, right? So which is the reason why farmers are shifting to tobacco. Why? Because in tobacco, these companies, a lot of them, they are foreign companies, and they pay into what? With foreign currency. So farmers, they are moving to tobacco because it's something which is, but however, there is a lot of challenge in that tobacco industry, right? So the challenge, like what I mentioned in my previous article, is mainly about price, and then the price of the tobacco. So if you see that there is the common challenge, the tobacco which is being produced by small scale farmers, it instantly deemed like of low quality, and then the price which is tagged on that tobacco will be much lower than the ones for the commercial farmers, which is the reason, which is something I can take from what you mentioned. Like that's why you find out like small scale farmers, they continue they continue, even though they the boom in the tobacco in terms of bloom, they continue if I can process being poor, like there is slow improvement of their from their affairs, right? But tobacco has been actually a game changer to another extent. So what I think is the main issue in the tobacco industry is about pricing, right? I have been in the floors, a lot of them in the tobacco floors where tobacco is marketed, and you can witness it yourself. Okay, this is actually what is happening. So I think if that issue has to be if you take it seriously on the marketing of tobacco in terms of pricing, I think we can see a better shift or a better improvement in that industry, which will benefit the small scale farmer. So when it comes to other crops, again, like citrus and so forth, it's because Zimbabwe is penetrated with the informal sector. It's those kind of crops can be a bit difficult for farmers to delve into because of informality which is there. So farmers, that's why they just try to shift to crops such as tobacco, and then you can find that there's also the improving vegetable like cabbage, even strawberries. I see farmers who are also getting into strawberry business.
Yeah. So definitely hearing some positive sentiments from you, Hamond, about different commodities that are doing well. Christina, this is where things become interesting for us as journalists. And it's always interesting to hear how agricultural players have different perspectives and point of views when it comes to a specific field. Quite interesting. I want to pivot, Christina. The media has a significant role in shaping public opinion and influencing political discourse. How do you see the media's role in creating a better Zimbabwe?
I think the media is critical, and from what both Hamond and Theo were saying, one thing that came to my mind was the issue of paradigm shift. I think Theo is talking about long-term, and long-term really is where we should all be looking at. It's not just planting today and harvesting tomorrow, but what is it going to go for our children and their children? So he's talking about leaving a legacy. So I think as the media, if we come on board and we are also telling people that, yes, it's fine to grow maize, but why don't we also look at something else, as I was saying, innovation? So we come back again to that paradigm shift. Why don't we look at macadamia? Yes, it might take many years for the crop, but at the end of the day, it's something that is sustainable. Where are we going with all of this? So as the media, I think we've got a number of areas that we need to look at. The area of paradigm shifts, innovation, and also just saying, people must be creative and sustainable as well. We can't keep growing a crop that we've been growing for 100 of years. But if the environment is no longer allowing it, then we just say, because I've got my few hectares, I have to grow this because that's what my mom grew, that's what my grandfather grew. So there's a lot that the media can actually do in terms of showcasing. We go to Theo and we say, okay, let's talk to the farmers in Matabeleland, the ones who are doing the cattle ranching or whatever, or the goats. I mean, these days there's a big thing about bull goats. What can we do so that other people as well can see that, what, we can evolve with time. So I think as the media, that is our part to play, to say, what, life keeps changing, life keeps moving. Let's do it this way, let's do it that way. And then obviously the policymakers, what can they do? We know that it's not cheap to be a big farmer. So how can the policies be changed? Even the tobacco farmer, when he's saying it becomes like slavery, what if the person who grows the tobacco can actually then go and sell the tobacco on his own without a middleman? What are some of those policies that come into play. Even the maize, if we could have maize that, yes, you could take some to GMP, but you can also sell it elsewhere. Those are the different policies. I mean, we've got farmers who are doing, I think, blueberries and stuff. They are exporting. We've got people in horticulture, they're exporting. And obviously they're making big business. So I think it's time for us to just look, and as the media, to also portray, to show what people are doing. I think sometimes we don't really show how much is happening. It might be small, but each step is a way to growing for the country as a
Theo, Christina talks about agricultural policies and that long-term view that you spoke about. The relationship rather between the agricultural sector and political stability is definitely significant. How do you think can Zimbabwe ensure that its agricultural policies remain insulated from political shifts and ensuring long-term prosperity for farmers and the nation?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Agriculture is a business. So it needs to make profit. If it's not a business, it's a welfare case. And we have way too many of those. So the first thing we need a government to do after these elections is to create this policy environment which is conducive to profitable agriculture, not just planting and harvesting. If it's profitable, the youngsters will come again. We need that kind of policy environment. But also, you need to lure the investment. And investment only comes to certainty. There must be certainty of tenure. We must restore trust in titles. People will not plant a tree if they are not certain that they will still be around to harvest from that tree in 5 or 7 years from now. And agriculture has changed so much in the last 20 years, in the last 10 years, in the last 5 years. It has digitalized. Already, my generation became too old to understand and integrate all the latest technologies. But there's a new generation out there, the generation of Herman. Those guys who are sitting at the universities and doing the research and to understand what precision farming is all about, data-driven farming, where you can actually make every drop of water count, every seed on the field, and every square inch. That is where agriculture is going. And Zimbabwe, they're not dragged behind on the latest technologies. If I was a policymaker who gets elected in this elections now, I would have pushed for making this new generation capable, or to enable them to use these latest technologies to ensure that Zimbabwe's status as bread basket gets restored again as soon as possible.
And we hope that message goes out clear to the those that are pulling or steering the ship in Zimbabwe. Theo, we definitely hope that as voters go and make their mark. Just to maybe lastly close off the discussion, I'll run through all three of you quickly. Hamond, maybe you can kick us off with this question. As we discuss agriculture and politics, what message or piece of advice would you offer to people of Zimbabwe to foster unity and positive development regardless of the election outcomes?
Okay, so elections are very important because elections influence politics, and then politics influence government. And what we all need is good governance, not bad governance. And in terms of elections, that's when we choose who can influence good government, such that anything which happens in our country should follow a good path which is profitable to our socio-economic development. So, in terms of this moment, it is the time people should just choose those who can influence the good government.
Yeah, definitely. Theo, what message or piece of advice would you offer to people of Zimbabwe as they go make their mark?
No matter what the outcome of the election is, the election marks a new beginning. If we have the same government, there is an opportunity to leapfrog immediately after an election, because now there's time. You can one can take political chances. It's a new government, it's a new group. So there is a sense of change in the air. And the worst thing that can happen now to Zimbabwe is that the people of Zimbabwe leaves it to the politicians to drive that change on their own. Democracy may never mean an opportunity once in 5 years to make your cross. Democracy means that every citizen every day has the opportunity to roll up his sleeves and get involved in the change we need in society. So my message to Zimbabweans is be that change you need.
Yeah. Christina, your side, how can Zimbabweans foster unity and positive development regardless of what we see will come out of the elections?
I think definitely elections are a process, and it's up to each and every one of us to make sure that we are part of that process. So it's not just about making that mark on the day, but also being involved. I think Zimbabweans through the past few years, you're seeing a little bit more interest from all areas. People are now becoming more involved in what is going on in their own communities. Whereas before, people just used to leave it and say, well, we'll leave it to the councillor, we'll leave it to the MP. But it's critical that we all get involved. If we want to see a difference in our lives, then we have to make that difference. And also just remembering that, elections will be here, elections will come and go, but farming will always be there. So whatever it is that we do, we want to make sure that the policies that come into place will also benefit us as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. There you have it. Get involved and make sure that you participate and contribute to a new and better Zimbabwe. Thanks for joining us as we explored the dynamic interplay between agriculture, socio-economic development, and of course, the future of Zimbabwe. To my guests, Hamond, Christina, Theo, thank you so much for joining us and contributing to this important conversation.